Let's say you have multiple course creators on a learning site, and you're going to give your members unlimited access to all of the course content for a monthly fee. You could incentivize your course creators by creating a profit share and a distribution in Siren. You can even base how much you pay each course creator based on their performance. A common example of this is by determining how big of a share each creator gets based on how many times website members completed a lesson or a course that was created by that collaborator. Let's create that in Siren. To help explain how different distributions work and different programs work with Siren, I actually built a commission pay calculator at commissionpaycalculator.com. This tool allows you to be able to build out and test different potential programs that you're creating for yourself and allows you to experiment with different ways to make it work without necessarily buying Siren or buying any other tool or anything like that. It's just a quick way to get a quick overview of things. So for the distribution program that we're going to create, what we are going to do is we're going to set it to shared pool. And let's say we had 10 course creators, right? Not 100, 10. There we go. Let's say we had 10 course creators and we wanted to pay them 25%. And let's say that our monthly recurring revenue is some nice number like 100,000. So nice and easy numbers here. So that means we would be paying $25,000 out to all of our course creators, and then $75,000 of it would stay with us. If we didn't do anything, if we didn't do anything special, and we just divided that money among everybody, each of our 10 people would receive $2,500 apiece. And as you can see right here, each one of them would get a 10% share of that 25%. You could totally do this with Siren as is. If you wanted to just divide the amount of money each month based on the amount of income you have, just as a flat profit share that everybody gets equally, you can absolutely do that, no problem. But I think it's a little more useful to actually use something that will incentivize your different collaborators to do more. And a great way to do that is to use what I call a performance weighted pool. So, how a performance weighted pool works is instead of just paying um, an equal amount to every single collaborator that you're working with, it actually allows you to pay a weighted amount based on their performance. And this is represented by this performance bias right here. So, if I nudge this a little bit, let's say maybe something like there's not a hard value here, but it's just simulating the idea of different payees, different collaborators performing better than others. Let's say that there's a big difference between the best collaborator and the worst collaborator. In this case, the best collaborator is getting 17% of the commission and the worst one is getting 2%. In this example, the top collaborator is getting $4,300 of the payout, and then the worst one is getting a $500 payout. The popular course platform Udemy actually uses this exact approach. Their best course creators, the ones who get the most engagement and the most viewership of their content, get paid the highest percentages. And we can do that exact same thing with Siren. I'm going to show you how to build both the even distribution method that I'm talking about here, as well as the biased distribution where the top payee is going to receive way more than the bottom payee. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you can play with these numbers and figure out how to make these values motivate your course creators to do exactly what you need them to do, which is drive engagement and keep people paying for your membership, right? Because that's really what this is all about. You want to incentivize your course creators to drive as much value to those members as they can. And by doing that, you're ensuring that your users are more likely to stick around longer before they actually do lapse on your membership. In Siren, we're going to create something called a distributor. A distributor works a lot like a regular program. The only difference here is that instead of it being bound to a purchase, it's actually just bound to past performance, the performance that has happened over the last month or whatever the period of time is that you specify in the distributor. And basically, what it's going to do is it's going to listen for events that happen throughout the course of that month. Listen for things that are happening, like maybe somebody completes a course, somebody visits a website, or a purchase is made, or whatever. Any of these different things, and it's going to listen for those. And then at the end of the month, it's going to tally up how many times those things happened, along with the point values that are associated with those different events. And it's going to use that score to help inform who gets paid and how much they get paid. So to create a new distributor, we're just going to add a name. So we're going to call this a membership performance program. And then the description, we'll call it pays course creators based on performance. Set the status to active. I'm using US dollars here, but whatever your currency is fine. Revenue percentage. Basically, what this does is it determines what percent of our revenue are we going to actually use for this distribution. So basically, it's equal to this payout percentage right here. We're going to set that to 25 just because it's mimicking what we did right here. The distribution schedule, this determines how often the distribution actually triggers. In our case, we wanted to distribute once a month. So we're going to have this distribute on the first day of the month. Or heck, why not? We can do the 25th. I personally in my business pay myself on the 10th and the 25th. All my bills and all that stuff processes through that. So that would be a very convenient time for me. As for the metric tracking events, this is the stuff that actually makes distributions work. So what this does is throughout the month, like I said, all these different events are going to be tracked and we call them metrics in Siren. In the case of a course platform, we're going to want to track course completed and lesson completed. Anytime somebody completes a course or a lesson, we want to give the creator of that course credit. Now, what's interesting here is we can actually assign a value to course completed and lesson completed. What that value does is it determines how important that specific thing is, right? Because at the end of the month, we're going to use these points to determine who gets the most money and who gets the least money. So it's not just the fact that the course was completed or the lesson was completed, it's actually how valuable we say that that specific thing is. So in this case, we could say that course completed is probably worth a lot of points, right? Because it doesn't happen that often. It takes a lot of effort to actually get somebody to get all the way through a course. And we know that members inside of these course platforms find a lot of value if they're actually able to get all the way through the course and actually get the full value of that course. So we definitely want to incentivize our course creators to make sure that they are getting their members, the members who are viewing their courses and stuff, all the way through that content. And then the second one, of course, is lesson completed. And I think we can leave that at 1 point. That's probably okay. We're going to figure out the incentive structure. And this is the part that actually determines the way that this course pays out. So shared engagement pool is a lot like what we would see here with in the commission calculator where we have an even distribution where everybody's getting an equal amount. So shared engagement pool will actually take everybody who did anything at all as long as a course creator's course has a single lesson completed or a course was completed, as long as they did anything, they get a share of the profits. Now, if they didn't do anything, they don't get a share. The performance weighted pool allows us to make use of that bias. What's happening behind the scenes with the performance weighted pool is it takes the total value of all of the points from every single solitary collaborator in this distributor, right? It takes the total value of all of their total points at the end of the month. And from there, it takes the percentage of each collaborator's point value relative to that total value. If there's 100 points in the pool and one of my collaborators earned 50 points, that means that they scored half of the total points for that. And then that is used to determine how big of a share of the profits they get. So in that case, they would get a very large portion since they were responsible for dishing out half of the total points. And then the last one is top score wins. What top score wins does is the top performing person, the person who got the most points, gets all the money, right? It doesn't get divided, it doesn't get shared, none of that stuff. All of the money goes specifically to the top scoring collaborator for that month. Now, of course, that doesn't make a lot of sense in this context, but what if you were doing a monthly bonus where it was like a competitive thing where maybe you're offering like an extra 5% share to a sales team for the person who generated the most sales that month or something like that? So there's definitely use cases for top score wins. It's just not here specifically. And then finally, including commission pool. So what this does is it basically says, let's figure out what parts of every transaction that we track over the course of the month should be included in the amount of money that is being calculated for the pool. So basically, right here, we have the payout pool, right? This is that $100,000 of revenue that we earned in the past month, right? That is built from several transactions over the month. So what we can do here is we can specify what parts of those transactions should be included in that calculation whenever we figure out what our total revenue is. Typically, this is going to be discounts, fees, and line items. And basically what those will do, those three discounts will make sure that anytime somebody makes a purchase and they use a coupon code or some kind of figure out some kind of way to get a discount, it's going to include that in the calculation. So it's going to actually remove that money from that discount. So you're not paying, so you're not miscalculating and overpaying in cases where there are discounts. So you definitely want that one ticked almost all the time. Fees usually work with memberships and things like that. So, for example, WooCommerce subscriptions, you can actually pay a sign up fee or something like that. So, typically, I recommend that's ticked regardless of if your plugin supports it or not, just so that in the future, whatever your e commerce solution is, if it happens to ever start supporting fees, you're ready for that and you're prepared for that. Next up is line items. This is specifically the items that are actually purchased, right? What's cool about line items is you can also filter which line items get included in the purchase. So let's say you have a whole bunch of different courses or a whole bunch of different memberships on your site or something like that. You can actually limit which ones actually get calculated in the pool. This allows you to make sure that maybe only your memberships are being calculated. So maybe you're selling courses and you're selling memberships and you only want to give a revenue share of your memberships. This would allow you to do that by filtering down by the different SKUs. So maybe you have a membership called membership 1 or something like that. This would allow you to only filter by those specific SKUs. Or alternatively, you could also just use any of these types of products or subscriptions, right? So in this case, you could just say all subscriptions are viable. But maybe you had a specific membership or something that you wanted to use and you didn't want it to be all of them, then you could use it using these SKUs or the categories. But if you leave all three of these unchecked, it'll just include all transactions with all line items all the time. Finally, we have shipping and taxes, and both of these are self-explanatory. Do you want to include shipping costs and do you want to include the taxes in that calculation? Probably not. Most people don't want to include those. So that is how those things work. And then real quick, let's just set that back to performance weighted pool. And just like that, we have created a membership performance program using a distributor.